the new developments in the Karen Read murder trial.
This has been a wild turn of events.
I've seen a lot of things. I've never seen anything like this. This case never ceases to amaze me.
It's a spectacle, that's for sure.
It was a hung jury, so no verdict, no real ending to this case.
Karen Read was back in court where a date was set for her to be tried once again.
There are a lot of issues in this case.
Proctor was improperly searching Karen Read's cell phone for nude photos.
Michael Proctor, the lead investigator,
relieved of his duties.
It's always the theories that each side will put forth for a jury to decide which one is more believable.
Karen Read was drunk and angry and hit and killed John O'Keefe when she gunned it in the snowstorm.
Karen, did you ever say I hit him?
I did not.
There are more people here at the beginning of this than at the beginning of Johnny Depp's trial.
We're not concerned about any of the witnesses. None of the Commonwealth's witnesses are concerning us.
And once again, there was drama outside court.
There is a whole new set of legal troubles for Karen Read. She is now facing a wrongful death lawsuit.
The lawsuit alleges that Karen Read was drunk and reckless when she hit John O'Keefe.
It's not just Read being sued here. The family also suing the 2 Canton bars from that night.
The 2 bars are liable for over-serving her.
The FBI is investigating an investigation of a murder. That never, ever happens.
At this point, multiple jurors have been reaching out to both sides, saying that they are certain Karen Read is not a killer.
I did not kill John O'Keefe. I've never harmed a hair on John O'Keefe's head.
We're looking at arm injuries with scratches. We're not looking at tire tracks.
There are 17 jurors, and they're coming and going with a police escort.
The investigation wasn't thorough.
This can't be good for the prosecution moving forward.
I just hope justice is served for either one, whatever it is, you know.
The fate of her life is not in her hands anymore. It's not in the hands of her attorneys. It's not in the hands of the prosecutor. It's in the hands of the jury now.
The last 2 episodes have been a deep dive into the drama that has been floating around the perimeter of the Karen Read case. The drama that has now officially made its way into the story. In episode 31, I laid out the full story of how Aidan Kearney, aka Turtle Boy, was indicted for felony witness intimidation charges as well as picketing witnesses. In episode 32, I went through Kearney's personal life, including clips from an interview that I did with him recently where he shared things with me that he's never shared publicly. There will be more clips from that interview in this episode as well, but you can find the link to the full interview on 13thjurorpodcast.com. Going through Kearney's personal life and struggles was never on the agenda when I began this podcast, but in order to understand the significance of the allegations in the letters written by Kearney's attorney, Mark Bederow, you have to first understand how we got here. There are 3 main women that I refer to as the Revengers, who all felt scorned in their own way, that were having text conversations about taking Kearney down, discussing the best way to make sure that he's locked up for a significant amount of time. One is Kate Peter, or KP, a former colleague turned outspoken enemy of Kearney's. KP has an entire YouTube channel that seems to be almost exclusively dedicated to everything anti-Turtle Boy, and her social media is filled with crude insults and slurs toward Kearney, his followers, and sometimes anyone who even has a loose affiliation with him. The next is Leah Genduso. She lost her dream job with Massachusetts State Police when a story that Kearney wrote brought attention to her past. She received a dishonorable discharge, and an internal affairs report concluded that the background check done on her didn't turn up her illicit past because Genduso gave deceptive responses and false statements on her application, though Genduso claims that higher-ups knew and went along with it anyway. Although Genduso at first despised Kearney, an unlikely romance blossomed when they reconnected after he wrote another story a couple of years later that involved someone that Genduso was involved with. The romance didn't last, it ended on bad terms, and Genduso joined KP in the anti-Turtle Boy Club. Then there's Lindsay Gattani. What started as a casual physical relationship somehow turned serious and ended up flipping Kearney's life around. After going back and forth about being pregnant or not being pregnant, having an abortion or not having an abortion, Kearney broke things off with Gattani because he felt like she was lying about a pregnancy in order to keep control and manipulate him. The day they broke up, Kearney refused to cancel his live show to come to her house that night. Gattani reached out to Kearney's enemies and set up a plan to meet with the prosecutor and the lead investigator in his case. Kearney has admitted on social media that she was once a member of the Free Karen Read movement, and her early text to Kearney praise him for working to save the life of an innocent woman, even telling him that he's doing God's work. Kearney says that she eventually changed her mind because she realized that she was getting information from only one source. And she says that she learned that Kearney had worked with Karen Read herself and that this was all what she refers to as an orchestrated PR campaign directed by the killer herself. And she was smart enough to take a step back, review the information on her own, look at the bigger picture, and change her mind. Apparently, all of that reflection and research happened sometime pretty quickly after December 9th, because right after Kearney told her that he wouldn't cancel his show to come over, she told him that she hopes that he understands what he's doing, called him some colorful names, and told him enjoy the ride for years to come as he looks back in regret that he couldn't be bothered to just come sit there. Then she reached out to his enemies and made plans to meet with the prosecutor and lead investigator in his case. Kearney has her first meeting with Tully and the state police on December 14th. There's a conversation in her phone extraction where all of the responses from Kate Peter are removed, and only Kearney's side of the conversation appears. She tells KP that they just left, talking about the Massachusetts State Police, and then says, depends on your idea of good. She seems like the meeting didn't go as great as she was hoping for because she tells KP that Mello told her the day before not to worry about anything, but she says that she was told something entirely different during the meeting that she just had. She calls KP after this and they talk for about 2.5 hours. The next day, Kearney reaches out to KP asking for more information. She wants to know what Jen McCabe thought about her meeting, asks if Tully is going to get mad that she told people something, asks what the next steps are, and if Tully has talked to Mello, and then says, would he even buy that? She seems to go to KP for all of this information, but all of KP's responses in this conversation are conveniently removed. Bederow addresses this in the letters, saying that the messages that are missing from the report that Massachusetts State Police prepared are the messages from their own source, KP, that contain information about Tully, Mello, Kearney, and Jen McCabe. So what were they talking about? And why is that not available from the state police's report of the extraction of her phone? Whatever the case, Kearney was obviously completely done with Kearney now. She had met with state police and the prosecutor and befriended his enemies and had a new goal to get him locked up. She was done. Except, maybe she wasn't. In a hearing from January 8th, Kearney says under oath that on this same day that Kearney is texting Kate Peter about what Jen McCabe and everyone else thought about her meeting with Tully, she's also texting Kearney, attempting to engage him in sex and sending him sexually explicit comments. Not a good idea if the police are going to be accessing her phone, right? But Kearney was sending those messages from her son's phone. Kearney said that when she texted him, she told him that it was her son's phone. But of course, he would have no way of knowing why she was using his phone at the time. And that's not all. There are multiple texts over the next week where Kearney is trying to entice Kearney. He gives the dates during the hearing, and they even include December 21st, when he says Kearney initiated contact with him and sent him explicit pictures. On December 22nd, Kearney is in court for arraignment. His original charges included 8 counts of witness intimidation and 1 conspiracy to commit witness intimidation for allegedly conspiring to have a dispatcher run the license plates of Jen McCabe's car that was parked in front of lead investigator Proctor's house, as well as Proctor's 2 cars. But now, Kearney is answering to new charges, including 8 counts of intimidation of a witness, 5 counts of picketing a witness, and 3 counts of conspiracy to intimidate a witness. Much of the hearing centered around Prosecutor Mello arguing to have additional conditions put on Kearney's bail. He told the judge that Kearney was encouraging his minions and followers to harass witnesses. He said Kearney wasn't following the no-contact orders with individuals related to Karen Read's case, and he wanted the judge to put restrictions on him. Mello wanted Kearney restricted by the judge. He wanted him under his control. But it didn't work. The judge said that there's nothing in the law that gives the power to place restrictions on Kearney, and he pressed Mello to give some kind of law that gives power to enforce restraint on a defendant's speech. There isn't any. So, Mello was denied, and Kearney was allowed out on his own recognizance, his only restriction, not to break any laws, or he will end up back in court.
So I had a big victory in court on December 22nd. Mello tried to get stay-away orders put in place, and he lost because I guess you can't do that in Superior Court. And so I walked out of there. I was on the front page of the Herald. Like, Turtle Boy has his, out of his shell was the lead thing, like has his restraints released. He can go back to his business and blah, 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 blah.
Mello wasn't happy about this, but he wasn't giving up. An hour or two after Mello is told that the only way that Kearney is going to jail is if he commits another crime, Mello has Detective Lieutenant Tully serve Lindsay Gattani with a grand jury summons, officially making her a witness. But a witness for what? The arraignment that just concluded was the result of a grand jury that took place, and it was already done. It was completed 2 days before that. Kearney and his attorney, Tim Bradel, both said that there's nothing that Gattani could have been subpoenaed for because she wasn't privy to any information that could be used against him. Gattani said that Tully told her that she can share the summons with Kearney. So the first thing she did is text him a picture of it. Kearney said that just 2 hours after his big victory in court, he receives that text. He said he was confused. He had just left court with a huge victory. So now what?
2 hours later, everything changes because I get a message from her with a picture of what appears to be a summons in Commonwealth versus something about witness intimidation in Canton. And I'm like, is this, you have a summons? And she goes, Brian Tully just came to my house and gave me this. And I'm like, how does Brian Tully know who you are? And she goes, why don't you ask Lauren Murray? She probably told them who I am and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're not going to blame Lauren Murray for this one. You want to blame Lauren Murray for everything. Not going to happen.
Gattani may pretend that she doesn't know how she became a witness, but in an interview that Mello did with Jessica Machado from Fall River Reporter, he publicly acknowledges that Lindsay Gattani became a witness because she contacted the prosecution.
Did you know that his ex-girlfriend was going to be a witness in this case? When did she become a witness?
She became a witness recently. We received some communication from her, and I had a summons served on her on Friday. The summons had been prepared before our Superior Court appearance, and after Superior Court appearance, she was served with the summons.
So your connection with her was she contacted you first? You didn't have any reason to contact her until she reached out to you?
That's correct.
Kearney still didn't even understand how Tully knew who Gattani was. She wasn't involved in the case, and at this point, he didn't know that she had met with him and had been planning this with Kate Peter behind his back. During a hearing, Kearney's attorney, Tim Bradel, points out that there was nothing that Gattani could have been subpoenaed for. The witness intimidation grand jury was over, and he tells the judge that he believes that Tully brought her in just to make her a witness so that they could get him with yet another witness intimidation charge.
An hour or two later, Lieutenant Detective Tully was at Ms. Gattani's house with a grand jury subpoena for essentially no crime. She had no information, no incriminating information. How do you know that? Because I'm privy to my client's interactions with her. So there's no criminal behavior whatsoever that was ever engaged in that would be relevant to anything on a case where he's already been indicted on 16 charges. The grand jury investigation is over. We contend this grand jury subpoena was manufactured and given to Ms. Gattani to make her a witness, just to make her a witness in the case, as a foundation for a witness intimidation charge later.
If this is true, it's a huge deal, right? Making Gattani a witness so that you can charge Kearney with another witness intimidation charge? That's literally a setup. It seems too wild to be true. So what did they want Gattani to testify about in front of a grand jury? Turns out the supposed grand jury was canceled, and by the time Gattani did testify, it was all about things that hadn't even happened yet when she was made a witness. Gattani asked Kearney to come over to discuss everything, but Kearney talked to his attorney, who told him absolutely not. Do not go over there.
I asked my lawyer, I showed him this, and I said, she wants me to come over to talk about it. He goes, don't go. And so I told her I can't go. And, that she didn't like that answer. she tried to actually, we have text messages showing this, like she tried to entice me with a threesome to get me over there, and I still didn't go.
Kearney followed his attorney's advice and didn't go to Kearney's that night. But they ended up having a long conversation on social media that night. Kearney asked Kearney about everything that he was questioning, trying to find out what was going on.
That night, around like 1 o'clock in the morning, we have a freaking conversation on social media back and forth in which I confront her with all the Jane messages. And I confront her with some tweets that Kate has been posting. And Kate is posting really personal things about me that I only told her. Like shit about my kids, really personal shit.
As a father, Kearney said he was able to connect to his son easily through shared interests like baseball. But he had a more difficult time with his daughter, who was into things that he didn't know much about, like cheerleading. Kearney had opened up to Kearney about these struggles that he was feeling as a parent, and he said that he then saw Kate Peter posting about these personal struggles on social media.
And Kate's posting about it. So I know at this point that she's given Kate information. And so I confront her with all it. I go, I know you're talking to Kate. I know that you're Jane. I know this, and she will not admit it.
Kearney said that he also told Kearney that she was lying about her family not being there for her. And he said that he had read the probate court documents that prove it. These documents aren't publicly accessible, so Kearney having them and sending them is brought up during an argument when she says that she took it as an indirect threat to her children.
She goes, I don't have any support around. I don't have anyone around to help me. And I go, well, that's not true. Your family's right down the street in Plainville. And she goes, no, they're not. They don't support me. I'm like, I read the probate court documents. I show her these documents to show like, no, you're lying. Again, I have proof that you're lying right here. And she has since said that I was threatening her by showing probate court documents. I was threatening her children because her children are mentioned in the probate court documents.
After they go back and forth for a while, Kearney said that Kearney finally confesses and apologizes.
Eventually, I talked to her for like 2 hours, and she confesses to everything. She starts crying, saying, I'm so sorry. I was just mad at you. I didn't think that they were actually going to give me a grand jury summons. I didn't think that they were going to ask for my phone. Tully wants my phone. Tully's telling me that I don't need a lawyer. There's no one I can turn to. I so regret this. I'm so sorry, Aidan. I've been working with Kate this whole time. She was crying to me, like crying. And I'm so sorry. And stupid me. I felt bad for her.
When Kearney is asked about this in court, she said that she did apologize, but only because Kearney was mad at her about working with Kate Peter.
The gist of your communications with him was that you were sorry for taking the position against him and that you just wanted to get out of it somehow, right?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. You contacted him and you had a change of heart back to Mr. Kearney and you wanted to communicate with him and you told him you were sorry about getting involved with the other side, right?
I told him I was sorry, but it was in relation to something else.
And what was it in relation to?
He was angry that I had been in contact with a woman he is not fond of.
And who's that?
Kate Peter.
Kearney says that while Kearney was finally confessing what he believed was everything to him, he decided to bring up the baby as well. After the way that everything went down, he didn't believe that Kearney was ever even pregnant, and he wanted her to admit that to him.
And I go, I appreciate you telling me the truth about all this. Now it's time to tell the truth about the baby, Lindsay. And she goes, no, the baby's real. And I'm like, is the for 2 weeks, I'm like, I assumed the baby was gone. Now it's like the baby's back. And I'm like, I don't know what to fucking believe.
Kearney didn't know what to believe about this baby. He still questioned that it was ever real. But Kearney had apologized and confessed to everything else, and he said that she was being really nice. The back and forth confused him, so he said he asked her about that too.
I asked her, like, do you have like two personalities? Because you have this one personality that's straight up evil, and then you have this other personality that's very nice. And the person you're being very nice right now, and you're crying and you want my help and all this stuff. And then you have this other side of you. And she's like, yeah, I do feel that way. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you. And blah, 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 blah. And it was all set up.
We'll be right back after this. The holiday season is coming up and it is tough on our skin. Colder weather, stuffy indoor heating, and nonstop festivities. It can lead to dull, dehydrated complexion. So that's where today's sponsor, OneSkin, comes in. Their scientifically proven products are designed to support your skin at the cellular level so it looks and feels healthier and holiday ready. Founded by an all-woman team of scientists, OneSkin focuses on skin longevity, not just surface-level improvements. It's all thanks to their proprietary OS01 peptide, the first of its kind to switch off the cells that cause skin to become more vulnerable. Don't just take my word for it. OneSkin has over 6,300 5-star reviews for their moisturizers, cleanser, and sunscreens. And for a limited time only, you can try OneSkin for 15% off using code BRANDY when you check out at oneskin.com. This holiday season, invest in your skin's long-term health, because healthy skin is a gift. I've been using the face topical supplement and the eye topical supplement. And the face supplement is a moisturizer I've been using on my face and my neck, and I've already seen results in my skin's evenness and smoothness and the overall appearance. And the eye topical supplement has been huge for me. The elasticity around my eyes has improved and the firmness. So I am totally ready and confident for all of my holiday pictures. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so that skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with code BRANDY at oneskin.co. That's oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code BRANDY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Aidan Kearney said that he knew that his ex, Lindsay Gattani, had been lying to him and working with people who were trying to take him down. But after having a long talk with her, she confessed and apologized, and he believed that she was truly sorry and was just scared and looking for help with the situation that she had now gotten herself into.
It wasn't until she confessed everything and said how sorry she was. That's all it took, is just lying to me. You know what I mean? And it worked.
Kearney said all it took was confessing and apologizing, and he forgave her and felt like their relationship was over, but he would still help her in this situation.
You fucked me over pretty bad, and we'll never be a thing, and I'll never forget this. But like, if you need help, I can help you out with this. Okay.
He said he didn't know at the time that he was being played. Kearney said that Gattani asked him to come over the next night. She told him that she didn't feel comfortable sending him the messages because of phones being tracked. But if he came over the following night, she would let him look through her phone. So he agreed. The next morning they texted, and she mentioned talking about everything else in person, and he says, yeah, in person. So they made plans, and he agreed to go to her apartment building.
You know, I went over there thinking that, like, this is a woman who made a mistake and is ready to own up to it, and I feel bad for her, and I forgive her. Now I know, based on the extraction, that that whole day, the 23rd, she's on the phone all day with Mello and Tully and Kate, probably telling him he's coming over here, and I got a plan.
Kearney didn't suspect Gattani at that point, but he was suspicious of Tully.
And I agreed to meet her in a common area, and because I don't trust going in her apartment, and Tully's been in there. I don't know if they've bugged it, if this is a setup. So we meet in the common area. The whole point of me going there is for her to show me her phone and show the messages, and she's going to show me, I'm going to show what they were doing. And, you know, she's like, we're going to get Tully, she's telling me, and, you know, we're going to get Kate, and we're going to expose all of them. And, you know, thank you for helping me. But we're in the common area, and she doesn't want to let me go on her phone. Now I know that she didn't want me going on her phone because she was using the phone to record me, essentially. She had called Mello and Tully, and they were listening in on the three-way on our conversation. She then goes into the bathroom for what seemed like 15 minutes in the common area. And finally, I knock on the door, and she's talking to them in there, as it turns out. And she sends Tully a text message at 10:48 saying, he wants to go through my phone. He's knocking on the door. I'm deleting all of our messages. Do not call me.
The text to Tully reads as follows. Ken said to call you, but I can't now. He is knocking on the bathroom door. I have to go back out. Please don't text or call, and tell Ken not to because he wants to see my phone. I'm deleting our calls and text right now. Don't respond until you hear from me. Kearney had no idea that Kearney was texting Tully or making calls to Prosecutor Mello during their conversation.
And it's right in the police report. She's telling them she's deleting out. The police, at no point do they say, no, don't go in your apartment with him. He's dangerous. At no point do they say, no, don't delete text messages. Those are evidence. Like, don't do that. Like, this is unethical. Instead, they're like, yeah, go, do it. Yeah, get him in there. Because they knew that the second I walked into that apartment, the second I walked through her apartment doors, I was going to jail. No, it was going from that point on. There's no cameras. Everything is going to be her word against mine.
Phone records show that calls were placed from Kearney to Mello at 10:25 p.m., 1:16 a.m., and 3:35 a.m. Now, this presents a huge problem because this makes Mello a witness. An attorney cannot prosecute a case that they are also a witness in. At some point during the evening, Kearney said that Kearney's 11-year-old son calls her phone about 8 or 9 times. He thought that was odd because he said that her son never really called her phone. And now he's suspicious that it was done in order to get him into her apartment, away from the common area and away from cameras. So he agrees to go to her apartment and he looks through her phone conversations while taking notes.
And so I agree to go back in, and she shows me the entire context of her phone. And I'm sitting there taking notes. I'm like shocked about the things that I'm reading in these messages about how I was set up and working, and they were working with these people. And I'm like, oh my God. And then finally we get done looking through the phone at 2:30. And she, I'm so sorry. She tells me again, and I love you. And it starts kissing me. And then one thing leads to another.
Kearney testified under oath that things escalated and they were intimate, but he told Kearney that he couldn't stay.
I'm like, it's 3:00 on Christmas Eve. I got to go home. I'll sleep a couple hours when I get home on the couch, and then I got to do Christmas Eve show with my kids. She says, no, you can't leave me here. And then she takes abortion pills in front of me. And keep in mind, she's not pregnant. We have since found out through grand jury testimony that those are from a previous pregnancy left over, apparently. And so she takes them in front of me and it's like, now you can't leave kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, this is insane.
Kearney says under oath that she took the pills because Kearney said that he would stay for a while. So she was angry that he was saying now that he had to leave. What happened next is debated. One person's word against another's, which Kearney said he believes is exactly how it was intended to be. Here is the incident in question, told with the testimony under oath and my interview with Kearney as he's describing it.
I took the abortion pills. He said he would stay with me after I took them. He said, all right, I got to get going or something along those lines.
And then around 3:00, I said, I have to go home now because I told her before I can't sleep over. It's the 23rd going into the 24th. And she didn't like that answer at all. She said, you used me, like something snapped in her.
Their stories on the abortion pills vary as well. Kearney says that she took them because Kearney said that he would stay. Then when he said that he was leaving, that's what set her off. Kearney said that when he told her that he was leaving, that's when she took the pills so that he would stay. They both agreed that Kearney ripped out the pages of notes that he had taken and put them down her shirt.
And she immediately began putting her clothes on.
I walked out of my bedroom where we both were standing and into my living room. And I saw his notepad on my couch where he had taken the notes.
And took my notes and ripped several pages of them out and stuffed them down her shirt.
He came up from behind me because my back was towards him since he was coming from my bedroom. And at first he didn't know, I think, what I did. He said to me, what did you just do? And then he looked and saw that his notes were not there anymore. He grabbed me by the back of my shoulder, turned me around, and my fist was like this. I believe he thought the notes were in my hand. And then he tried to grab my fist in the process of saying, give me my notes back, yelling at me, notes. And then when he saw they weren't in my hand, he started yelling some more, what did you do with them? And kind of pushed me in the process of trying to wrestle me for the notes. And my knees were at the couch level. So he pushed me into the couch and I fell thereafter fell on the couch.
Did that hurt?
No.
Did you touch her in any way at that point?
No, I asked her several times, can I have them back? Even the next day, I even texted her. I said, can I have those notes back? I mean, that's my property. It's what I spent hours working on over there. I would never try to take some. I knew they were in her shirt, but I wasn't going to touch her against her will.
So Kearney says that he did not assault her. Gattani said that he was trying to get his notes back and her knees were level with the couch. So in the process of trying to wrestle the notes away from her, he pushed her into the couch. She said it did not hurt, but it made her fearful. When things escalated, Kearney began recording what was happening. Now, I've cleaned up the language a little bit, but you can hear how angry Gattani is at Kearney because she said that she took the pills and he was supposed to stay there longer.
You know, leaving me after I took these pills, after you lied to my face just now, to try to walk out now, you realize I'm a mandated reporter, right? You want to fuck with me with my help and make me sit here and do this alone when all you have to do for 3 hours is to sit here? Fuck you! I'll fucking play your game, Aidan.
The arguing continues, and Gattani says that Kearney is blackmailing her and threatening her and her kids, telling him that indirect threats count as threats also, and telling him that she's a court-mandated reporter. She continues yelling at him, telling him that he's a liar and a user, and calls him a psychopath who is only popular because of his online persona.
You're deranged. There's something wrong with you. You weren't built right. You were born with something with your wiring fucking off that makes you a fucking psycho. Okay. You're psychotic. I'm psychotic. No fucking man acts this way. No man thinks his whole life is an online world with fucking online fucking people that talk shit. Like, you literally think like that's the whole world. Like, because you're a dweeb. Because no girl ever fucking wanted you. No girl. And guess what? The only fucking reason anyone pays any attention to you is because you're fucking stupid ass show. Otherwise, nobody will look twice at you. A fan of. No, I fucking wasn't.
She goes on to insult his mother. Then he sees that she's making a phone call. Now, in the video, you can hear that he's asking her who she's calling, and he believes that she's calling someone to try to say that he hit her to frame him for something.
What are you going to try to do? Are you going to try to frame me for something?
Frame me? Like, are you serious?
Are you going to try to pull some bullshit like I hit you or something? Is that what you're trying to do right now? Who are you calling? I say on the tape, I go, are you going to make up a lie and say that I hit you or something? Like, who are you calling? And at that point, she could have said, you know, if I had actually hit her, what she could have said was, you did hit me. But she doesn't say that.
Kearney didn't know who she was calling at the time, but because of the phone extractions, he now knows.
She makes a call to someone who I now know is Mello. She called Mello, and Mello answers the phone for him for a full minute and tries to listen in on whatever insanity is going on in this apartment.
He asks again who she's calling, and she says that she's calling someone for help. She's still crying and tells him that she's angry that he's leaving after she took the abortion pills, but he says that she spit them out. She then says that she took the majority of them. Now, when he tells her that he's leaving, she begins screaming, and he's telling her to be quieter.
I said I'm taking them. You said I'll say that you take them. Don't say that you did it. Don't say that you did it. Don't say that you did it. You said you would.
You're going to wake your kids up.
Don't say that you did it.
Kearney asks again for the papers that she took from him, but she tells him that she's not giving them to him because she doesn't trust that he will stay if she does. She tells him that she needs him to stay because her pregnancy is his responsibility also. And when he tells her that he's not even convinced that she's pregnant, she snaps again. He asks to see pictures of an ultrasound or something else, and that does not calm the situation down.
You can hear her, she's screaming so loud, and she's got 4 kids there, and starts pulling their coats out of the closet and say, kids, wake up. I'm driving to Aidan's house, and I'm going to bleed out in his driveway, And if I crash along the way, it's going to be his fault.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna take all my kids with me in the car and drive to your fucking house and sit in your driveway and let it happen in 3 hours in your driveway. If you're gonna fucking do this to me, I'll wake up all my kids right now. What do you think I won't? You're not gonna fucking do that to me.
Kearney tells her that he's leaving, and she says that she's going to take her kids and follow him and bleed out in his driveway. You can hear her yelling, telling her kids to wake up, and Kearney tells her to quiet down and to stop. She yells for her kids to get their shoes on, and her son comes out of his room.
And then the 5-year-old comes out, and I'm like, okay. If you could see the look of shock and horror on this kid's face, being woken up in the middle of the night by his screaming mother, being told to get in the car, we're going to Aidan's house so I can bleed out in the driveway, like horrifying. I'll never forget the look on this kid's face. And I said, okay, you can hear me on the tape saying, okay, I'll stay. Okay? Put that boy back to bed. You need to put that boy back. That was my only concern right then, was making sure those kids were safe.
No, what you're doing is abuse. What you're forcing me to take those and saying you're going to stay with me and help me. That's abuse. That's abuse what you just did to me. You need to fucking stay to your word because that's fucked up what you just...
Okay, you need to go back to bed.
And you need to fucking stop doing this to me.
He needs to go back to bed. He needs to get to bed. Put that boy back in bed right now. You heard me? Put that boy back in bed right now. This is not good for the kids.
Yeah, you're damn fucking right it's not.
You need to put him
You're damn fucking right it's not.
You need to put him back in bed right now. Right now.
You need to stop doing this to me. It's abuse what you're doing right now.
And so I agree to sit down, and while she pretends to pass the fake baby. And so I sit there until about 5 o'clock, and I notice she's sleeping, and I just sneak out of the apartment and leave.
We'll be right back after this. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to my mom. She's been my biggest supporter and always believed in me. This month is all about gratitude. And along with the person that I just shouted out, there's another person that we don't get to say thank you to enough. Ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. One way to thank yourself is to give therapy a try. Therapy is hugely beneficial. It's helpful for learning how to set boundaries, how to positively cope with difficult things, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're considering starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/juror today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juror. After a very intense night, Kearney was able to sneak out of Kearney's apartment after she fell asleep. Kearney hadn't slept, so he testified that on his way home, he fell asleep driving and damaged his new car on the highway. It was drivable, but making sounds, and he said that he barely made it home. It's now Christmas Eve, so Kearney and his family go to his sister's house. While he's there, he gets a phone call.
And I get a call from the Holden police around 2:33, and they said, we need you to come down to the station. We have something for you. They didn't say what something was. Now I know it was an arrest warrant. And I get another tip from another Holden town employee about an hour later saying, whatever you do, don't go home. They have a warrant for your arrest, something about an A&B in Medfield. I'm like,
Kearney is upset, thinking that Kearney has now gone to the police and made up an incident to get him in trouble.
Now I know, since then, after looking at her phone records, that she woke up that morning and talked to Kate Peter for 2.5 hours. And they probably powwowed about what they were going to say. And then she shopped on Victoria's Secrets. And then at about 11 o'clock, she calls Tully. And Tully comes over and doesn't call the Medfield police to report this assault. She calls Brian Tully. And they powwow. And then Brian Tully calls the Medfield police at 1:30 and says, I'm here to report an assault. She never even called the police or said that I assaulted her. Brian Tully did. And so, you know, you got a state police lieutenant calling the local police saying this guy hit her, so they put an arrest warrant out for me.
Kearney said he called some attorneys asking what he should do. He hadn't been served with a warrant, but had been tipped off that there is one. He was told that bail revocation is rare, but they don't like Kearney, so they may revoke his bail. Kearney said that he told his wife everything and stayed away from his home for the next 2 days. He FaceTimed his kids on Christmas morning, but Kearney said that he was officially at rock bottom. On December 26th, Kearney's birthday, he went with his attorney to turn himself in. Kearney goes before a judge with Mello present, and his bail is revoked. He's told that he's going to jail for 90 days. He ended up only having to do 60, but he said it wasn't easy. He said that jail changed him, made him realize that his personal life was a mess and he needed to get it together.
Jail changed me. Like, as a person, I feel like a different person when I got out of there. It was like a second shot at life, you know? My ex-wife and I now, we're divorced. We get along. I see my kids every day. I have my own place here. We don't argue. I see my kids every day. Get them on and off the bus.
It also brought him closer to his parents, which he was thankful for because his mother lost an unfortunate battle with cancer this year, and he was glad that he had spent extra time being able to talk to her. While he was in jail, he appeared at a hearing for a restraining order that was granted for Kearney. It was set for 1 year, and Kearney isn't allowed to be within 100 yards of Kearney, although the assault and battery charges against him were dismissed, and the only one that stuck was the witness intimidation. On the day that Kearney was released from jail, he found out that he had been indicted on 2 more charges, one for felony wiretapping and another witness intimidation. He did a live show in which he announced that he would be attending the hearing for Karen Reed that was 3 days away.
And so I go to the hearing, like I always do, and I am outside for a couple hours with the protesters, and I go inside and I have my seat where I normally am. And then I get a message, and somebody sends me a screenshot, and they go, "Is this Lindsay?"
Someone watching a YouTube live saw Lindsay Gattani outside of the courthouse and texted a screenshot of the video to Kearney asking if that was her.
And I'm so nervous because I'm like, is she outside? Is she coming in? Is she really doing this right now? Like, and then she walks into the courtroom holding the restraining order. And I, without saying a word, I get up and I walk out and I leave because I know this trick.
Kearney said that Kate Peter was charged with violation of a restraining order because she didn't get up and leave a courtroom when Lauren Murray, who has a restraining order against KP, walked in. He said that he thought that they were now trying to do the same thing to him. Kearney was at the hearing with his new girlfriend, and when Gattani walked in, they got up together and left. Kearney believes that having his new girlfriend there made Gattani even more angry.
And so we walk out, and I go outside, and I immediately start filming because I want this all documented, you know? And I go right up to a cop, first cop I could find. And I said, there's a person in there with the restraining order on me, 100 yards. Where should I go? He points me to the registry of deeds. So I go over to the registry of deeds and I stand there for about 5 minutes. I talk to Turtle Riders about what just happened. And unbeknownst to me at that time, Kate Peter is on the phone with 911. And she knew this was going to happen. She probably set the whole thing up herself.
So here's where this story gets fishy. There's a restraining order against Kearney, where he isn't allowed near Lindsay Gattani. Kearney said on a live show that he's going to be attending this hearing. And we know that Kate Peter, or KP, watches Kearney's lives because she's given information from them to state police. She posts about them, she clips them, she discusses them, she watches them very closely. So KP would have known that Kearney would be there. Gattani had never been to any of Karen Reed hearings up to this point, not one. The very first one that she attends is the very first one where she has a restraining order against Kearney. KP, who is not even at the hearing, is watching from home. And when Kearney leaves the courtroom and goes outside, he begins a live feed on his YouTube channel. KP sees his live feed as he's talking about having to leave the courtroom. And then she calls the police and tells them that Kearney is down at the courthouse violating a restraining order and that they need to send police to pick him up. Kearney said when court ended, there was nowhere for him to go, but he and Kearney didn't see each other, didn't interact, and there were no issues. He did find out later that Kearney told an officer that her car had been vandalized, and she said that it was probably Kearney because he was mad that he had to leave court. But other than her accusing him of messing with her car, nothing else happened until later that day.
5 hours later, she calls the Dedham police and says, he violated the order against me. He was yelling at me on the way out of court. I get another charge for violating a restraining order, simply based on her word. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going back to jail. Like, so we have a dangerousness hearing on March 14th. My first 20 days out of jail, I don't even feel free because I might go back to jail. And I think every judge in the world is against me.
Mello tried to use the incident at the courthouse on February 26 to revoke Kearney's bail, and an evidentiary hearing with the Dedham police officers who were at the courthouse testified. The court refused to detain Kearney based on the testimony given.
We had the two cops testify, the one who told me where to go, and the one that took the report and said that she didn't mention anything about violating the restraining order.
At a hearing in April, Kearney is asked on the stand why she went to the hearing.
Because she said that she was invited by the family of John O'Keefe. And we asked, who invited you? Well, Paul O'Keefe. And I've since talked to Paul O'Keefe and I asked him about this. But Paul, to his credit, when I spoke to him a couple months ago, he said that, no, I didn't invite her. He goes, it must be a miscommunication. Well, now we know that Kate had messaged Lindsay. We have their phone extraction and said something about Paul O'Keefe. What that is, we don't know because her messages disappeared. But Lindsay's response is, Paul O'Keefe wants to talk to me? Like exclamation point, like so excited. And clearly, I think what happened was Kate told Lindsay, Paul O'Keefe wants you there. And she set the whole thing up. And Kate's watching from home. She knows I'm in the courtroom. She knows Lindsay's going in. And she knows I'm going to get kicked out. And she's going to call 911 on me. And she did.
So Kearney says that KP made Kearney think that Paul O'Keefe wanted her to go to the hearing, knowing that if she showed up, Kearney would have to leave, and then she could call the police and have him arrested for violating the restraining order. That same night, KP left these two voicemails on Kearney's phone. Now, these voicemails contain graphic language, though I have edited out the homophobic slurs. The first voicemail was left at 11:34 p.m.
Hey, it's Kate Peter, crusty panties, how you call it. I just wanted to let you know, every time you get a block number, it's not Lindsay or LG or anyone else, it's me. And I just want to let you know that when you go back to jail, I had absolutely everything to fucking do with it because you're a dumb motherfucker, right? And every time that you victimize a female, I'm going to be right there pushing back. I just want you to know that. Play this on your fucking live show. I am going to get the best of you. You're a bad person, and everybody's going to see it. Have a nice day. By the way, Karen Reed wants nothing to do with you. Go fuck yourself. Bitch. I meant it.
The second voicemail was left 7 minutes later at 11:41 p.m.
Hey, I can see that you can post my voicemails on your Twitter because you're a bitch. Why can't you face a female? I am not afraid of you. I never witness intimidated you. You're not a witness in any case. You're just a small fucking but likes to prey on women. Call me back, motherfucker. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you did to Lindsay. Let's talk about what you did to Jen McCabe. Let's talk about what you did to Colin Albert, a 19-year-old juvenile. Let's talk about it, Aidan. Why are you so afraid of... I know that you're not. You just want to self-victimize. How's your wife doing, by the way? How are your abused and neglected children doing, by the way? Call me back, you fucking I'll drive over to your parents' house right now. Fuck you.
During this time frame, she also posted on social media, tagging Kearney and calling him the same homophobic slur, telling him to answer his phone and saying that she's responsible for all of his suffering. There were also Discord messages and countless posts on social media and videos on her YouTube where she's threatening Kearney. She also showed up at his house and left a note, then posted a picture of it online. And she shared some very vulgar things that I don't care to get into. A couple of weeks after these voicemails and posts were made, Kearney was granted a restraining order against KP, prohibiting her from contacting him or coming within 10 yards of him. KP said under oath that Kearney's just mad because she has been cooperating with the prosecution and giving them information on him. She says that he blames her for all of his problems because she is furnishing information. Now, during this time, Kearney has been going to court hearings with his attorney, Tim Bredel, requesting all discovery that should be available to the defense that they said that they haven't received yet. Mello has been missing court due to illness, and Bredel said that he's never taken issue with someone's health issues that they claim to have until this, because he said Mello has had ample time to harass his client and revoke his bail on the flimsiest of charges. But every time an obligation comes up where Mello is required to provide discovery to illuminate the accusations, then there's a health problem that prevents him from doing so. He says this is obstruction, and they have filed memoranda for sanctions against him multiple times. One of the things that they were seeking was grand jury minutes. Bredel and Kearney didn't even find out about these grand jury minutes until they were entered into evidence in the case against Karen Reed. Not even in Kearney's case, Karen Reed's case. They were sent to Lally and Karen's defense team before Kearney and his defense attorney were even made aware of them. They were also seeking the phone records of Gattani after learning that she was in direct communication with Mello and Tully. The judge set a deadline for all discovery to be given to the defense, and later that month, Tully handed over all discovery. In this was the full, unredacted phone records of Gattani. This was given to Kearney's attorney by Tully, and while the full extraction covered more than a decade of messages, somehow the ones from Tully and Kate Peter were missing. So, all of that brings us to the Bederow letters. The first one was dated September 12, 2024, and in this letter, they first request the unaltered extraction that Tully and Guarino got from Gattani's phone on January 10th. Bederow says the defense received an extraction, but had concerns about it being complete. They were told by Special Prosecutor Cosgrove in July that whatever the communications are, they're all turned over. But Gattani had already said that she communicated through text with Tully and Mello, then deleted the messages. Those weren't on the report. The only message from the report between Gattani and either of those two was the one from December 23rd, the night of the alleged incident where Gattani texts Tully while she's in the bathroom. Something else that's missing is the media file that Leah Genduso sent to Gattani during the text message exchange a few weeks prior to Kearney's arrest. Whatever that file is, seems to have played a significant role in Gattani's effort to have Mello make her a witness against Kearney. Also missing from the extraction is Kate Peters' responses to Gattani's messages, where she's describing her interactions with Tully and Mello. Bederow says this is important because Kate Peters' prior messages show that she convinced Gattani that she had direct access to Mello, communicated with him about Gattani and Kearney, and she placed Gattani in touch with Mello weeks before the alleged December 23rd incident. Bederow also writes that Kate Peters' responses to Gattani's messages inexplicably just disappear from the extraction report on December 14th, after Gattani texted her that she met with Tully and wanted to discuss the meeting with her. Bederow tells the special prosecutors Mello and Cosgrove that he's concerned that the Massachusetts State Police deceived them by excluding discoverable and exculpatory evidence from the extraction report. And if that's true, that's a flagrant Brady violation. Bederow points out that Guarino failed to reveal several deleted phone calls, texts, and Google searches in his extraction of Karen Reed's phone. And in the investigation into Sandra Birchmore's death, Guarino did the extraction from Matthew Farwell's work and personal phones, then stated that he found no communication with Birchmore. But when the feds got involved, they found more than 32,000 messages between Sandra and Farwell, many of which are incriminating and contributed to the U.S. attorney taking the virtually unprecedented step of prosecuting a murder case in federal court because the Commonwealth screwed it all up, determining that it was suicide instead of murder. Bederow says that because of that, and the prosecutor's obligation to learn about exculpatory and discoverable evidence, they request that Guarino and Tully be interviewed. They want to let the defense know whether they intentionally or unintentionally withheld information from the extraction report, and promptly disclose the complete report and make any other proper disclosures regarding the extraction report. We'll be right back after this. And finally, Bederow wants all evidence related to credibility of witnesses. Proctor and Buchanan are both part of Kearney's witness intimidation charges, and Tully is the lead investigator on his case. All three of those are under internal affairs investigations, which Bederow says entitles the defense to any information that impeaches their credibility. He notes that Proctor's credibility problems resulted in Brady letters sent to numerous attorneys in July and September, not to mention the texts about Karen Reed that he says were despicable and misogynistic. He also mentions Buchanan perjuring himself during the Karen Reed trial when he said that the Sallyport video was a fair and accurate representation, not telling the jury that it was inverted. Bederow also wants Mello disqualified. He was in contact with Kearney, Kate Peter, and Tully for 2 weeks prior to the alleged incident, and even during the incident. Bederow says Kearney used Mello to orchestrate Kearney's arrest. He says the curious timeline needs to be explained by Mello. Kearney's relieved of any restrictions on December 22nd, and then suddenly, the same day, Kearney is made a witness by giving her a grand jury summons. So then she asks Kearney to come over, and the next day calls Tully, who then calls the local police, and now, all of a sudden, another charge of witness intimidation is filed against Kearney, since Kearney, for the last few hours, had been a witness. The defense says that Kearney secretly formed an alliance with Kate Peter and Leah Genduso with the purpose of exploiting Mello into making her a witness against Kearney in order to try to get him arrested. On October 8th, another Bederow letter was dropped. Kate Peter is a source for Massachusetts State Police's investigation into Kearney, which means any communication and evidence in her possession regarding the investigation and prosecution should be made available to the defense. That's pretty big. Bederow wants any evidence about whether Kate Peter acted as an informant, including names of any MSP handlers and any evidence that she provided against Kearney. They also want any records of Kate Peter's communications related to her contacts and interactions with Kearney, Kearney, Leah Genduso, the Commonwealth and MSP, or any other law enforcement agency between October of 2023 and now. They also want any statements made by Kate Peter to law enforcement regarding Kearney and or Kearney in any form. In the letter, Bederow points out that under the law, Kearney qualifies as a witness. So KP unloading a barrage of crude, harassing, and threatening statements to a possible witness violates the witness intimidation statute, though she remains uncharged for those violations. Kate Peter tells Kearney that she doesn't get most of her information from the DA or MSP. She just has a really good relationship with the O'Keefes, Alberts, McCabe's, and several local journalists. Now, I want to make a side note here that even though KP says she has a good relationship with the O'Keefes, Alberts, and McCabe's, we don't want to assume that the vile things that she has said and written, or the despicable things that she does, are in any way a reflection of them or at the request of them. We want to assume that she's acting on her own. We can't put any of the blame for her behavior on those families. And another major bomb dropped in the Bederow letters, an accusation that Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey lied about evidence and improperly communicated by personal email to avoid his communications coming up in a public records request. So here's the deal. Kearney's phones were seized when he was arrested in October of 2023. For the past year, there have been multiple hearings where they have discussed having a taint team go through Kearney's phone in order to do an extraction. Now, a taint team is also known as a filter team. It's basically a group of people or a person who reviews the information, in this case, the phone extraction, and they determine what constitutes as privileged information. For example, communication between Kearney and his defense attorneys. Since that's privileged, the prosecution isn't allowed access to that. So a taint team goes through and removes any of that and then gives the rest over for discovery. Now, they've been discussing having this done for a full year now so that they could do an extraction of Kearney's phone, saying that the reason that they haven't been able to give back his devices is because they haven't been able to look through them yet, because they haven't had the taint team. But according to the letter, an extraction was already done, and District Attorney Michael Morrissey and Prosecutor Mello have both known for a full year that Tully searched the devices. And his agency extracted data from at least one of them the same month that Kearney was arrested. Kearney's defense team came into possession of several data extractions from the phone, proving that Morrissey and Mello, along with state police, have all been lying. What makes it worse is that the reports were obtained through a third party as opposed to being turned over as discovery, which is a direct violation of the law.
As it turns out, they've actually been in my phone. We know this because last month I met a woman named Michelle who came up to me and handed me an extraction from my phone of my messages with a friend of hers. And I'm like, how did you get this? She's like, I was the source. That I used to work in Stoughton District Court. I sent my friend an affidavit of Chris Albert and Jennifer McCabe when they tried to get orders on you, and he sent them to you. And here are the messages between you and him in which he sent, and they gave me these and said, we know that you sent the affidavit out, a public affidavit, mind you, you're fired. So they went through my phone and used it to terminate a whistleblower who broke no laws. And like you're allowed to send people a public affidavit. Like this isn't a secret court. They did try to get an order on me. It was in a public courtroom. You're allowed to do this.
So Chris Albert turned in an affidavit to try to get a protection order against Kearney. It was denied. A copy of that affidavit was sent by a court employee to a friend of hers who then sent it to Kearney. Morrissey used that communication to terminate the court employee, who was given Kearney's phone extraction as proof of sending the affidavit. A phone extraction that Morrissey, Mello, and Tully have all denied existed because they said they hadn't gone through Kearney's phone.
And also in those, her termination package, if you will, she was given an email that Michael Morrissey sent on September 29th from a burner email account. And in the email account, he said that I've been contacted by one of the witnesses who's being harassed. And he shows a screenshot of the message, and it's from Jennifer McCabe because it says, I'm horrified Chris Albert didn't get this order on him. And I demand to know who's telling him that these hearings are taking place. And he tells the judges that he emails 5 judges and says, you need to find out who the leak is. But he's like, yeah, I think it's this person, Michelle. You guys need to get to the bottom of this. But he uses a burner email account so that we can't trace it. We can't do a public records request. The only reason we know about it is because the email was used to fire her. It was part of her termination package. And so that is illegal. When the district attorney is using a burner email account to have an ex parte meeting, because that's what this is. One party is not there meeting with the judge. The same judge who denied the order against Chris Albert the previous day gets this email from Morrissey saying, you better come down harder next time. You better do something about this. You better fire this person. Turtle Boy's bad. 13 days later, I'm in front of that judge again in handcuffs, and he institutes stay away orders that he denied the previous day. So, like he was suddenly inspired to give me a stay away order after the district attorney reamed him out and told him, you need to get your act together. Like, so that is completely illegal.
When the Bederow letters dropped and the information came out about Tully having gone through Kearney's phone, the state police announced that Tully has been transitioned to temporary assignment in the Division of Investigative Services, and the agency will be hiring a replacement for his previous position of unit commander of the State Police Detective Unit assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. So could this actually be a setup? The credibility of Tully is obviously of concern. The credibility of Mello and Morrissey is obviously of concern. Also, Kearney said Gattani's credibility is questionable. Gattani's ex, Frankie, was in jail at the same time as Kearney for alleged domestic violence against Gattani. And when they got out, he said they connected and talked about their experience.
But after we got out, me and him connected and we just shared war stories. And we're like, bro, it was like 2 battered men meeting for the first time and like reminiscing about the fucking months of psychological abuse both of us have been through at the hands of this person.
Frankie isn't the only ex of Gattani's that has had a similar experience. Kearney's defense also received a letter from Nick Bonifilio that shared a similar past.
But Nick Bonifilio wrote an affidavit for us telling about his experience, and he had a very similar experience as me, including a fake pregnancy that was in a restraining order and a 60 days incarceration for violating the restraining order when she came to him. It's the exact same story. We all the guys that date her have the same story.
So could Kearney have used the system to punish a man or men when they angered her? And could Mello and the state police be so determined to silence Kearney that they're willing to break the law to make it happen? Kearney's aggressive style of journalism is definitely polarizing. He makes some enemies, but also has a loyal following that defend his antics, saying that he's exposing corruption, which is bound to ruffle some feathers. I asked Kearney if he feels like he's crossed a line with any of the witnesses, and this was his response.
No, not at all. Like with Jennifer McCabe, because I view them, like, have you seen the Scott Peterson documentary that came out this summer? There's in episode 2 of that, there's reporters outside of Scott Peterson's house before he's been arrested. And, a lot of people were starting to suspect him because he was acting suspiciously. So he sends one of the reporters standing outside with a megaphone that says, "Scott, why don't you just come outside and tell the truth? Just tell the truth, Scott." That's exactly what I did, except not even that bad. Like when I went during the rolling rally to Julie Nagel, like I wanted people to tell the truth. I viewed these people the same way all those reporters viewed Scott Peterson prior to being arrested, as murderers who would eventually be arrested. Like, and I still view them that way, as murderers who will eventually be arrested. The FBI is not wasting their time on this if they don't think the McAlberts killed John O'Keefe. They're not going to be doing all this if they think Karen Reed did it. It's taken longer than I thought. And they've kind of lucked out in that regard. But no, I don't regret going up to Jennifer McCabe and asking her a question that, quite frankly, every reporter should be asking her. It's like, why did you Google that? Why did you delete all these calls? Why did you do that? Like, and everybody's afraid to ask her that, but I'm not. And because of that, and now we know why, because you get charged with a felony if you do that.
I also asked Kearney if there's anything that he would do differently. He said he never would have responded to Kearney's first message, and he wouldn't have gone over to her house that night, and there are a ton of things that he would do differently when it came to her. But as far as with the rest of his charges, he said he wouldn't change anything, because he says that they were determined to charge him anyway.
I would do nothing differently because, and I do get asked it a lot, and I've thought about it, and there's just no way I wasn't going to get charged. No, I mean, they're charging people for rubber duckies. They were going to charge me for something, no matter. I could go back and say, well, I wouldn't have done the rolling rally. They would have just charged me for something else. Like, they're charging me for shit I said on YouTube, shit that is taken out of context. Like on the chart, if you actually watch, the Glare has done an awesome 5-episode breakdown of this and just shows here's what they claim he said in the charging documents. Let's watch the actual video. And, oh, wait, they just took one phrase he said here, and then they combined it with another phrase that he said 3 minutes later to make it sound more ominous.
There's a hearing on January 10th to have Mello removed. And Kearney says that Mello, Kearney, KP, and Tully will all be expected to take the stand. So that day may have some fireworks. Tully's new assignment is listed as temporary, and his internal investigation is not yet showing as completed at the time of this recording. So is Kearney a combative, hostile bully? Or is he a truth seeker whose assertive, in-your-face style can just rub people the wrong way? Maybe he's a bit of both. People are complex. No one person is all good or all bad. That's only in Hollywood. Real life means that people who are heroes in one person's story may be a villain in someone else's. The Alberts and McCabes may see Kate Peter as a wonderful ally, while others only see the vicious things that she wrote about Kearney's mother when she passed. People do things because they feel that it's justified, and whether or not you agree with what's justified and what isn't, it often depends on which side of the guilt or innocence scale you're on, as opposed to an actual moral compass. I suppose the same could be said for Morrissey, Mello, and Tully. Do they feel justified in the things that they've done because they believe that Kearney deserves it? Maybe. But no matter where your moral compass lies, breaking the law, especially when you're supposed to be the ones upholding it, isn't okay. Next week, I'll have some updates for you on the civil case, the arguments that went before the Supreme Judicial Court this week, and a Vanity Fair article on Karen Reed that has fueled the fire of the non-stop social media wars. All that and more next time. My name is Brandy Churchwell, creator of 13th Juror Podcast. If you're enjoying it, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share this episode with your friends. For more information, photos, and episode guides, visit our website at 13thjurorpodcast.com.